So, Alex, I have three questions for you today, mostly having to do with design strategy. So, let me start with this first question. How does our proven design process translate to meeting the high level business objectives of our clients? And how does that translate in getting something that meets their needs on the trade show floor?
Great question. So, the way I would start that is we have at the beginning of our process a design input call. I would argue that's the most important part of our process because that's the part where we're able to really get as much of a download of the business objectives, your strategy, the ICP at your show, and every tactical need that you have, where the design team is able to absorb that
Yeah.
and translate that into a solution. And then straight away, right after the input, we gather internally and come back in about 3 to 5 business days with a takeoff. This gets you a white model format very quickly. So that way you can see, are we on track to make sure that did we hear you correctly?
Yeah.
Uh, as I said, that input call is going to be our way of understanding how we can translate all of the things that are in your head into an idea. And then once we get a semblance of a green light, yes, we're on track, or no, we're not, that's where the process really takes velocity and we're able to really come back with a fully formed solution to make sure that we've heard you correctly and we've translated that into a fully formed concept that you're going to really be proud of on the show floor.
Very cool. So, just quickly, who do you recommend be on the initial call so that all of the voices and needs can be heard?
Sure. Well, it is imperative that the design team, the designer specifically who is going to be working on it, is in that call. The business development, they are in charge of driving that conversation to make sure that they've extracted all of the information as thoroughly as they can in a very short window. It's about a 45 minute to an hour, but ultimately those two people in our team are the most important people who need to be there.
And then what about on the prospect side or the client side? Who do you recommend or who have you seen on that call from that side of the fence that has made the input really juicy and productive to give you the fuel you need to create something great?
Yeah, typically it is the marketing manager, or and it could be more committee based, or it could be one singular person.
Okay.
We found it to be more effective if it is a rather small group, and that way the flow of communication is a little bit more streamlined. But at the same time, we do understand that there's going to be more of a larger committee of people in the marketing team who want to have the ability to share some of their insights and input on that
Okay, cool.
conversation.
Okay, right on. So let's dig into question number two. And this has to do with some flexibility.
Yes.
Okay, since Steelhead uses the access model, which is essentially like a rental based system, how does the rental system allow for adaptation for different shows, different audiences without kind of losing the premium impact that somebody maybe would expect from like a typical custom booth?
Certainly. So when we're designing, we're always thinking in modular, but at the same time, modular can be misinterpreted sometimes as more systematic, not as custom. And we really try to break that false belief because we are designing modular custom components in a way where we're able to be flexible, sustainable with it. But say, for example, if we're working with a client and we're designing for a particular show, we're actually not just designing for that show. We're thinking in systems where we know that they might have a few subsequent shows after that. So we want to make sure it's the most cost effective and efficient way to utilize the properties for that particular event, but also repurpose what can be repurposed for future events.
Yeah. And in my experience with the work that you have produced, really there's no need that can go unmet from a customization standpoint when considering the base structure are the modular components. And then it's what goes on top of them that can make the customization really stand out.
Definitely. I think so. We're going to receive needs from certain customers where they may have a need that we don't have an exact fit for in our rental inventory at that very moment. But that's okay because what we can do is we can assess it from a few different angles and realize, well, we can address that, but also make sure that we're being flexible and sustainable with it at the same time. Because what we'll do is we'll provide it to them in a way where we're able to repurpose it at future events, possibly for other clients too, that may have a similar need. So
Okay.
what that does is it opens up our ability to have more of a widened rental inventory.
Very cool. Okay, cool. All right, last question. So this is speaking into sustainability.
Sure.
So, how do we at Steelhead integrate waste reduction into the structural design of the booth from day one rather than it being a secondary, like, oh, we've created this thing. What do we do with it now? So, how do we integrate in this idea of sustainability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the sustainability works very hand in hand with the answer to the last question about flexibility, because as I mentioned, we're thinking modularly. So sustainability isn't just a finish that we apply at the very end, like a material selection. It's really a structural and system-based decision as
Yeah.
well. So I think the biggest, waste reducer is, yeah, the rental model itself, is to make sure that we actually do have assets on hand that never go to landfill. And so we really want to make sure that when we're producing a booth, little as possible of that design goes to waste.
Yeah.
And I would say that we do a very effective job of that, to make sure that, just to the answer to the last question, when a specific custom need comes along, that isn't just a one and done. There's ways to in which it has a second life beyond that particular first initial need.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, Alex, thank you for your time.